Hey everyone, it's Phil Shot back at another video, and today we're going to be going in depth into Tulpa, and we're going to be progressing from free-to-play / earlier game teams and all the way to end games speedier and higher spender teams, and how we get to each point. I'm going to show the gear of everyone, and we're going to go and break down the mechanics of the boss on why these comps work the way that they do. So if you enjoy this type of content, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's jump into the mechanics of Tulpa. So first things first is I just want to quickly mention, I think Tulpa is the hardest of these three dungeons, as long as you have Nathalia for Ash. If you don't have Nathalia for Ash, Ash becomes much more difficult. But as long as you have Nathalia, Tulpa is the hardest of the three dungeons, and honestly gives probably the worst of the three dungeons in regards to gear sets. But that being said, it's still worth clearing because of those 2-piece sets. So what we have here is a lot of poison and fire comps, and we're going to go through all of that. But first, we're going to digest the waves and what the mechanics are of the boss fight. So first thing is the small golem. You're going to have 2 waves of 4 of these little guys in the upcoming waves before the boss. Ram and flurry are the abilities. The ram just hits you. The flurry does a bunch of little mini hits and then applies defense down. These things can hit quite a bit, and if they apply defense down to you, you are very likely to die if you're running a water unit, and we will be in some of the comps later on. So keep an eye out for these guys because they do hit hard. Unless you're just going through and bursting them out, they will become a problem sometimes. And then we have the little guards when we get to the boss fight, the left and the right one, just like the queen, the way that the right guard heals. These ones have some unique mechanics as well. So the left guard here has just a basic attack and then a reckless charge ability, which does an AoE and applies defense down to your squad. And this is massive because if we pair it with the right ad here, which is again a basic and then a counter attack boost, this ad puts a bonus damage to the counterattack from the boss. So if the left ad goes ahead and puts that defense down, the right ad puts the counterattack boost up, and then from the boss, you'll see here, it counterattacks every 6 enemy attacks. You can be hit for a massive amount of damage, as well as being hit multiple times after that from the boss and from the ad. So it is quite a bit of damage, and if you're not running a full fire team, you can definitely get murdered. So it is a little bit of a higher gear requirement to run non-fire units. So what does Tulpa, or why is Tulpa so difficult? Well, for one, there is quite a bit of damage being dealt, but more importantly, it is this ability at the top, Boulder Shield. So after you get under 50% HP on the boss will actually put up a gigantic shield equal to 50% of the boss's HP, and it will last for 2 turns. Now, you need to kill this shield before that second turn is up. So they put up the shield, you have 1 turn to hit it, the boss goes, then you have a second time to hit it, and then once the boss goes again, it will blow up the shield and just destroy your whole team. One-shot your whole team, and you'll lose. Now, if you have a spell called Shield of Mercy, you can prevent this, but absolutely, you need to remove this shield. Whether or not you're running poison or whether or not you're running fire team, you really need to get rid of the shield. So that's where the gigantic stat check comes if you're running DPS units. And then we have Armor Breaker, deals damage to an enemy and applies defense down. That's just basically the basic attack. Hulking Fist deals damage to enemy. Damage scales with this character's defense. So characters that defense down, spells that defense down actually reduce the damage that Tulpa does, which is why someone like Thomas is super good, even though I don't have him built. And then we have Apocalypse, and it's a little hard to understand this one because it's worded really poorly. But what I believe this does is it launches an attack on all enemies, ignoring 2% of the target's defense, and then it applies defense down to all targets if it hits. So keep that in mind. It's going to apply a bunch of defense down, as well as the other ad's going to apply defense down, and then you really got to get through this Boulder Shield. Now, real quickly, I just want to mention a couple spells that are particularly excellent for this fight before we jump into the team comps. First off, Water Prison actually becomes a little bit useful here because you can remove that additional counterattack bonus. Now, I do not think Water Prison is the most excellent spell for this, but it's just a little bit of a side thought. Gaia's Renewal and Shield of Mercy come in quite handy for some of the poison comps that we're going to be running, extra healing. And then Shield of Mercy can actually prevent you from dying to the shield explosion. So if you just need to survive a little bit more for your poisons to proc that last turn, Shield of Mercy will come in handy. And then we have defense down and actually rage here because you need to get through those shields. So defense down helps you do more damage, rage helps you do more damage. which is why those two spells are excellent. And I will go over the spells that we're using for each team comp. And we're going to jump into the first free-to-play team here, and it's going to be an all-fire team. So we have our first comp here, and it is going to be Cyrus, Asrina, Aurak, and Connor with the defense down and rage spells. This comp is free to play, but it's not necessarily easy to gear. Now, I don't think any of the comps for Tulpa initially are necessarily easy to gear, which is why I don't recommend people going for Tulpa, but you have a couple characters that could make it easier. This is the free-to-play version, as I said. Cyrus is good, and Asrina is good. However, there are a couple better options. Hector is great in Asrina's spot, and then Cyrus can be kept in. She's one of the better ones, or you can use Valyria to clear out the waves to go quicker. You can use Thomas. You could use Borden. There are a couple of different options for fire damage dealers, but depending on what damage dealers you use, determines how many stats and how much stats you actually need on your characters to go through the shield. Now, I'm going to go and drop the stats up on screen here and just go through them real quickly. Cyrus is at 3.7k attack, 253% crit damage. Aurak's at 4.2k attack with 234% crit damage. And then Asrina's at 4k attack with 273% crit damage. She's the only one with not max crit rate. We really want 100% crit rate, however. And then Connor's at 3k attack. Now, all the characters you're going to want at least above 121 speed. Aurak is the only one in this squad that's a little slower, and that's because you want the characters to go before the boss so that they can all get in 2 hits before that shield explodes. It really, really helps out. You're also going to want about 12k HP to 1 to 1.2k defense on all your characters. And the reason for all this is because you're going to see here, after we've gone through and went through our ultimates, the boss is at 57% HP. If we go and just wait for the ultimates to cool down, you're going to see that once the shield goes up, we're going to have our ults refreshed and we can use them again. That's super, super important. If your ultimates are not refreshed by the time the shield pops again, you'll see right here when the Tulpa takes a turn, there's the 50% HP shield. If you cannot have your ult up by that point, you're going to lose because you don't have enough damage to get through that shield, so you need your ultimate back up right when that shield pops, or at least the turn after when the shield pops. We really, really need our ultimates for this. And you can see here, this run is actually quite, risky. Now, I've run this several times, and it is 100% win rate. The only thing is, Cyrus carries it at the end, and Connor. Now, Asrina and Aurak are a little squishy, and Aurak is a little slower, but because I have better stats on the other characters, I'm able to run this even though I don't have the preferred speed tune for this comp. Now, you'll see here, Aurak's ult is going to go off, and Aurak is a pretty much staple for this comp. So is Connor. You're going to need both of them because Aurak's going to do more than any other character will do to this boss. He is not replaceable. There's no one that can do so much damage as he does, and then Connor gives you that attack buff and the heals. Now, if you do have a really, really well-geared squad, you might be able to run Brand and get away with it, but the heals come out really, really handy. If you have a really, really well-geared Brand, you might be able to tank through it with a shield and stuff, and he could replace Connor, especially if you get much, much better DPS gear. So that's going to be the end of the run, and it ends up being about 3 minutes, as you can see, 3:15, which is a pretty solid run overall. And definitely can get improved because I have an Ascension 2 Aurak here, as you saw, an Ascension 2 Asrina. And you could go, obviously, increase that so you don't have to use stats on their speed. I also do want to mention that it would be nice for Asrina to get a little bit of focus so she can land her ignites, and that will help you reduce the gear requirement a little bit, but it is RNG based. And the last thing I wanted to mention before we move on to the next team is my Cyrus was in a curse set there. She just took the Nathalia's gear that I had. You do not want a curse set if you're going for 100% win rate and you rely on a curse set to win the battle. If you rely on curse procs to win the battle, you will absolutely lose at least some point when you're running your multi-battles, and you do not want that to happen. So I would recommend everyone try without cursed before they put their characters in cursed. It will speed up the runs, but it won't make them more consistent. So let's go ahead and jump into the second beginner game comp here. All right, so here's the second comp, and this one that I actually am running right now isn't necessarily free to play, but there's some easy replacements you could make. However, it will drive up the gear requirement. You could take out Blackhorn and put in Rhaenyra, and you could take out Desmond and put in Valuk, just like your regular Queen comp. So you can literally transition your Queen comp from Queen into Tulpa, but it will require a lot more gear requirement. Now, we are using the Shield of Mercy and the Gaia's Renewal spell because there are some times when we don't land enough poisons, the boss will explode, but we have enough poisons on the boss to get that last poison proc and still succeed. I've not lost with this one so far, and I've done a couple hundred runs, so seems pretty consistent to me, and definitely doable. But I'm gonna go ahead and drop the stats up on screen here, and you can see my Blackhorde has 20k HP with 1.6k defense. My Desmond has 17k HP, 1.2k defense, and then 60% focus. Also importantly on Desmond here, he has got 100% crit rate. It allows us to get through the waves quicker, and also it allows us to get through that shield more consistently. So I recommend crit rate on Desmond because his second skill scales off of the amount of plagues out there, and so he's actually doing quite a bit of damage with his second skill. And then we have Hackern at 17k HP with 2.9k defense, and then we have Santis here with 15.6k HP, and then 1.4k defense and 60% focus. Now Desmond you can keep at 60% focus, but my Santis really wants about 90% focus because you're on a wood element, you're going to get resisted more often. 90% focus pretty much gives you 100% land rate, and you'll really want that. Now, the basic concept of this team is literally just to get to the boss real slowly. It's a slow comp, and you're just going to tank it out, heal it out, and then slowly poison them down. Now, you have enough damage with the poisons to survive typically and go through the shields. However, there are some scenarios where you do a little bit, not enough damage with the poisons, and then you need to survive, and that's where the Shield of Mercy comes in handy, where you survive one round just enough for your poisons to hit a second or a last time because the poisons proc after the boss. So it does work quite well, and you can use Valuk as I mentioned, but your Santis and your Hacker need to be geared well. And my Santis is just barely enough from what I've seen to survive the whole thing. If you have Mythasia, this could be changed, and you can use Mythasia in Blackhorn spot. But I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead to the boss fight so that you can see the amount of damage we're doing with Desmond and Santis. I do also want to mention, though, Desmond is bugged, and I will show you that in just a little bit. But we're going to go ahead and jump to the boss fight and just check it out there. So we went ahead and jumped to the boss fight, and I did turn off Santis' skills at this point in the run, right after she used her ultimate. We actually don't want her ultimate on, and you could see that Desmond here used his ultimate, and it turns his ultimate Plague Emissary back on. That is a bug. It actually should turn off if he already has it on, instead of just applying it again. You'll see here, he's going to do a massive amount of damage to himself, so that is honestly really bad bug, and I hope they fix it soon, but it does absolutely work, even with the bug in place. So you can just see here the power of this comp. You can see there, Desmond took a massive amount of damage. If the bug wasn't in place, he would have taken no damage, and he would have just been at like 70% HP. Now, I do have revival sets on Desmond, on Hagrid, and we do have revival set on Santis, like I mentioned, and that'll make the run much more consistent because you're getting that extra healing in those three characters. You don't need it on Blackhorn because he's oftentimes healthy enough to survive on his own. So we're going to skip ahead. Again, this run takes a while, just like your Queen comps, and we're going to rely on the poisons to slowly tick down. So we're going to go ahead and skip ahead to the end of it. So here we're approaching the end of it, and you can see here, this is one of those scenarios, like I mentioned, where the shield is just barely, surviving here. I'm not sure if we're going to get through it before. I can't remember what this clip had in mind. But again, Desmond didn't turn off his plague there. It just said, turn it back on. But you can see here, the Tulpa is actually going to take a turn. It's going to explode the shield, and all of our characters survive because of Shield of Mercy here. And then the boss dies. So that's super important, the Shield of Mercy, for select scenarios like that. Now, however, as I mentioned, if you have Valuk, or if Desmond wasn't bugged, this would happen significantly less. It's very rare that this gets to that point. But because my Desmond was bugged, it's really difficult to showcase the actuality of that comp. So as you can see, it's an 8-minute run, very long, just like your Queen runs, and it's one of the more earlier game, easier to gear than the Fire team, in my opinion. Oftentimes for damage dealing pieces, because I've had the experience where damage dealing pieces are much harder to find because you need so many stats with them, because you need crit rate, crit damage, and then some nice focus, you need speed. Whereas if you're running just tanky poisons, you just need focus sometimes and then HP. or defense, because Hakron shares his defense. So it's much easier to build tankier comps than it is damage dealing comps. Now I'm going to go ahead and showcase Gangello. This is starting to the end of the mid-game type speeds and mid-game type gear, where you're going to be running Gangello, some of the speedier comps, and we're going to go ahead and showcase that comp real quick. So here we are, and I just want to say a big thank you to Shen for allowing me to test out some of these comps on his account. And we are at the point where we're starting in some mid-game type gear. Both Gangello and Santis are on curse sets, and it is much quicker in regards to that from the previous one. So keep that in mind. So I'm going to go and drop the stats up on screen here, and we have 23k HP on Blackhorn, 1.8k defense. We have roughly 17k HP on Hakron, 3.4k defense, 25k HP on Gangello with 1.6k defense, and he's at 105% focus. You don't need quite that high. You need about 60-70% to land your poisons every time, because they don't land any extra resistance up or anything. And then Santis is at 22k HP and 1.4k defense, and she has 105% focus roughly as well. And that is necessary because you do want to land all the poisons every time, and it's going to be hard to do so without getting a lot of focus because she's the wrong element. So this comp pretty much plays out very similar. We're running the Shield of Mercy and Gaia's Renewal spells, but we're going to go and skip ahead to the boss fight just so you can see it in, the same fashion, except more damage from Gangello, and of course the curse procs, which will speed up your runs quite significantly. All right, so as you can see from the bottom left, the run was actually about 4 minutes and 40 seconds up until this point, and the remainder of the run's about a minute. So this boss fight takes not nearly as much time as it does to get through the waves. So that's the first improvement that we make in order to transition into some speedier comps. But you can see here, it's the same premise as your Queen team and any other team out there when you have a Gangello like this. Now, if you don't have Gangello Ascension 2 or Santis Ascension 5, this will absolutely work still. It's just that it will be much slower and you might need a little bit more stats. But that's the point, is this is a mid-game comp when you're trying to run all these pieces. If you want to run faster with curse sets, you need more stats in order to survive. So we're going to go ahead and get hit here, and you can just see all the poisons going up on the boss and everything. And the boss will take a turn here, and they'll take, I don't know, 30%, maybe 40% of their HP and damage. And there's the shield, which gets completely removed. It was actually about 50% of their HP just completely gone. And then the poisons will go ahead and kill off after the Tulpa takes another turn. One other important thing about this comp is that Gangello is going before Santis, especially for Ascension 5, because when Gangello goes before her, Gangello can apply a poison, and then Santis goes, and then she has a chance. Or if you have Ascension 5, she guarantees another poison being landed. And then here's the time run for this comp. It should be about 5.5 minutes, 6 minutes. So it's 6 minutes. As you can see, it's an improvement from the previous one with the Santis and Gangello. But Desmond is quite quick, and if he was working properly, it wouldn't be too far off from Gangello. So we're going to go and jump into some of the speedier comps now, and many of these include Gangello. However, there's one other one that I want to showcase in regards to Tulpa. So here's our first endgame / speed team, and this one is obviously not as fast as it absolutely can get. So this is the one I had available to me, so I can showcase it to you. And this one ran for about 2 minutes 40 seconds. I had to use a support character to show you this team, so I don't have the actual multi-battle available. I'm going to drop the stats up on screen here, and these are the exact same characters I was using earlier on my Connor, but I just replaced Connor with Zitlin so that we can go a little bit faster. And Zitlin has 1.3k HP, 66% focus, and then he's got a lot of speed. So we want Zitlin to go first, absolutely. It actually is a little bit better if you run him with damage, although that's minorly better. And then Aurak, obviously, we do want to get above 121 speed, so that is important as well, even though we don't have it here. Now I'm going to go ahead and just let this play out, because it doesn't last too long, as I said. We do take a couple minutes on the waves, and we do not have enough damage to actually go through this 50%, because if you don't know, Zitlin's curse effect, which is why we want him to go first, makes it so all your characters' damage that you deal during the 2 turns the curse effect is up actually happens a second time. So if you get the boss down to 50%, the boss just dies after the curse actually procs, which is why we want it to do as much damage as possible. Obviously, I have no Ascension in my Cyrus here, so if you have Cyrus Ascension 1 or Ascension 2 doesn't really help out too much, but Ascension 1, Aurak needs to go before the boss here, and you can see there, we actually took another 30k damage on the boss. And then Asrina, obviously if we had a better character than Asrina, couple characters that are way better, and I've actually been using this on my free-to-play account, and this is my free-to-play Zitlin. So we have Asrina. Instead of Asrina, we could run Melisa, who just does a ton of burst damage on those first 2 waves. Instead of Cyrus or Asrina, we could run Thomas. That would be the preferred one if we had Aurak, Melisa, Thomas, and the reason for that is Thomas would get that defense down 2 right before and easily allow us to burst through the boss. Tulpa has a ton of defense, so getting that defense down 2 matters a ton. And you can see here, we don't have quite enough damage to get through with just the curse proc, and so we had to rely on our damage to go through the shield after the fact, and we just have enough damage here in order to get through it. And we're barely going to make it pretty much in this comp, but as I said, if you had extra damage here with our characters, we would have much easier time. One other thing about this comp, in order to get it to the maximum potential, this is the most quick team I've ever seen in regards to Tulpa. And you need Valyria. So you'll need Zitlin, Valyria, Thomas, Aurak. And the reason why you're going to run Valyria is to clear out the waves really quick. And then you're going to have Thomas go before everyone to play that defense down. Valyria and Aurak are just going to kill off the boss with the defense down too. So that's the maximum potential. This team can go down to about 1 minute if you have those pieces. We're going to go ahead and jump into some other speed comps here and showcase them. All right, so here we have the really quick poison comp, and we have 2 iterations of this, very similar to the ones that we're going for Queen, which is why Gangelo Santis are so good. I'm going to drop the stats up on screen here, and they're pretty much the same stats in regards to Gangelo and Santis as we showed earlier in Shen's team, but Valyria and Evelyn are new. Evelyn's stats don't really matter. All she's there for is just getting that extra attack, but she does have 16k HP and 1.8k defense. And you want her to go last so that her ultimate's up by the time you get to the boss stage. So you want her after Valyria. And then Valyria is at 4.6k attack with 226% crit damage. You absolutely must have 100% crit chance. And then also she's on an Avarice set so that she can clear out the waves with her first ultimate. And then we get to the boss fight, and I did want to mention many of the teams here do have the animations on, so we can save a couple seconds there. But the basic premise of this is you just go ahead and hit with Gangelo and Santis, get the poisons out, and actually you could save a little bit of time while having their skills off of cooldown or turn off their skills here. And that's kind of important. I did not actually do that when I was recording this run, and we could save a couple seconds in regards to that, but it will still absolutely work. Now, we do have Ascension 5 Santis and Ascension 2 Gangelo. You don't need Ascension 5 Santis, but you do need Ascension 2 Gangelo for this to work. And you just go through, completely burst out the boss, and then just rely on the poisons when it comes and one-shots the boss pretty much. So Evelyn's great here. Just get that extra turn and apply a bunch more poisons to make sure it's like 10 poisons on the boss. And then the poison should just kill off the boss pretty much on this turn. He should live with 15% HP right there. And then in this specific run, I believe we don't get enough poisons on to actually kill the boss after the shield procs. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll find out in just a second here. And really just relying on Gangelo and Santis' poisons in order to kill off the boss. And it's pretty fun to watch. It's literally the same comp. There it has. So the same comp as Queen comp, except instead of Valyria, you'd run Zatlux, as we were showing about a week ago. But this should be about a minute 30 or 2-minute run. So 2-minute run for this team. Obviously, like I said, if you turn off Gangelo's skills, turn off Santis' skills, it's going to be quicker. And also, if you have Valyria go before Santis and Gangelo, you can get this down to about 120. And of course, we have the animations on, so that saves a little bit of time as well. Let's go ahead and jump into the other version of this comp real quick. So here we have it, and this is the same comp except with William in it. So I'm going to drop the stats up on screen here, and all that's different is William's stats with 14k HP and 1.7k defense. You literally he's only in here for the counterattack. That's the only reason he's in here. So actually, what would be better is to have an Ice Wolf. So Ice Wolf actually fits in the place of William even better. You do want Valyria, or you can use Zatlux, actually, even in the previous team if you have a good enough Zatlux, but it's very difficult for Zatlux to get to the stats required in order to kill these waves. So just keep that in mind. And this team, really all you're using, William, as I said, is the counterattack. So you can use Ice Wolf in that place. And if you run Ice Wolf, you could probably just take off Shield of Mercy and run Last Breath and then get multiple counterattacks. However, the left ad, as we mentioned earlier, is going to AoE. So we're going to counterattack on that AoE. So it might actually be better to not run Last Breath for a little bit faster runs. And you'll see that here when William gets the counterattack back up and we counterattack on the left ad. Now, we don't need focus on William at all. As I said, just for the counterattacks. Probably turn off the abilities for Santis or Gangelo, as we did. In the previous run, we did not. I think I mentioned turn off Santis' abilities, but you can keep them on or you can turn them off. It's very, very minor. I'm not 100% sure because it's very inconsistent in regards to the time that we're actually getting. The difference between them, at least. They're about like 1 to 2 seconds between each other, between not having Santis' abilities on and having them on. So I'm not too worried about that, but Gangelo's ability should be off because he will waste an entire hit on, that useless second skill in regards to speedrunning. Now you can see here, we're going to get the counterattack back up from William, and then the left ad's going to go ahead and AoE, and we're going to use all of our counterattacks on that, just like that. And so it actually would be better if William were to die at this point, and it would be faster because we wouldn't get an extra counterattack here, and then we can go straight for the boss again, and it would save, I don't know, maybe about 6-7 seconds. And then we're going to have Gangelo hit. Valeria should go ahead and finish this off. And that's going to be the end of the run. So pretty quick. Going to be quicker than the Evelyn one, I'm pretty sure. I think this is going to be 10 seconds faster. We'll see here in just a second. It is... Oh, so it's actually a little bit slower. And that's probably because we spent time actually getting that William counterattack. So if you had Ice Wolf here, it would be much quicker and much better because it'll be squishier as well. Valeria, if you get Valeria to go first before everyone, that would be awesome as well because you can get all those waves cleared out before anyone uses any abilities. So there's ways to speed this up. And between this, the other poison comp, and then the Zitlin comp, between those three, you're going to have 1 to 120 minute runs, which is pretty crazy, honestly. Very, very quick. And this is pretty much the epitome of speedrunning. Now, as I said, these runs right here are a little bit slower because we do not have the really, really, really powerful Zitlin's comp that I could showcase, which was with Valeria, that you could just one-shot the waves, get to the boss, and then use the curse there. And of course, we didn't have the powerful Valeria in the Gangelo comp that we could go first and actually one-shot the waves. So that's pretty much all the teams that I have to show for you. But we have a lot of other iterations of all these different comps. If you want me to go over any specific version, let me know in the comments down below and I'd be happy to make a video on it. But if you did enjoy this, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you for the next one.